Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Munoz, CEO of experience agency D Flash. Each week, I bring on different business leaders who are doing some game-changing work, especially at this really unique time. We're all kind of stuck at home because of COVID, and it's been a really unique period of time for business. And so it's fascinating and so exciting to have Arne and Giles, who are the co-founders of Spanner, on the show. I'm going to talk about their very unique company, how they sort of focus on product design, how they've been able to adapt in this very unique part of our history, and hear their career story. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. Take a listen. Hi, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
So Arne and Giles, you are fantastic. I've been reading up about all the really amazing things that happen at Spanner. And we'll dive into that in a moment. But since I actually have a twofer, this should be a fun contrast, because the question still remains the same, even if there are two of you on the show. What were your first jobs? And whoever wants to go first can go.
So I'll go first. So my first job was when at school, and probably one of my work placements is perhaps most relevant. Where it was I come from England and Oxfordshire, lived in a small market town, and there's not that much design work happening in that area, but that was my passion even super early on. I got a placement in a bottle making factory, so super exciting, obviously.
Of course.
So went to the factory floor, saw the bottles, but I loved it, seeing all the machinery. But the piece which I think really drove a path for my career was when I went into the design room and saw the first people working on the CAD, the computer-aided design, and for the first time seeing three-dimensional CAD up on the screen. And there was one engineer that had this massive tablet doing this stuff, and I saw this stuff moving on the screen and went, that's what I want to do. So at the age of whatever it was, 14, 15, seeing that, and now been doing a few of those 3D things over the years. So I think that was a pretty important first job for me.
Awesome. A bottle factory. Sounds really fascinating. How about for you, John?
I guess I was always one of those kids, like a lot of people who do what we do, who is taking stuff apart. I know Giles has the same kind of stories, but anything that broke in my house, it was mine to take apart. And so I was always very hands-on. My summer jobs in high school, I worked at my dad's. He had a fabrication facility here in the Bay Area, making machines for food processing. So very hands-on grunt work kind of stuff there, low guy on the totem pole in the shop. And when I left college, I knew I wanted to get, so I was a mechanical engineer as an undergrad, and I knew I wanted to get more specifically into product design, but wanted to spend some time out in the world. So I worked at a plastics injection molding factory down in Los Angeles. Started the first 9-10 months there. I was the graveyard shift foreman right out of college, not knowing what the heck I was doing in there. But that was sort of their jump in the deep end kind of training program. And then moved into the office, started designing some parts and learning CAD, and then eventually went back to school to study product design more specifically.
So that's where the path sort of begins for you. I see. Fascinating. I've always said I've always been fascinated by product design, and that's why I was super excited to have you all on the show. So I'd love for you all to talk about, okay, so from Bottle Factory and from your first job, how do we get to Spanner? What's that journey like? And I guess, Arne, why don't you go first?
Yeah, for sure. So I've known Giles and then worked together with Giles now for, going on 14 years. Prior to that, when I finished my graduate work in product design, I moved through several different industries. Spent a decade-ish in the toy world for a couple different toy companies, as well as freelance consultant. I worked in sporting goods for a while, running the engineering and design group at Bell Sports, like Bell helmets, bike helmets, ski helmets, that kind of thing. And from there, moved to a consulting firm where Giles had already been working for quite some time. So he and I were colleagues there for a good 7 years or so. And at one point, things just kind of started to converge, and it seemed the best move for us both was to spin off of there and open our own agency. Now, I mean, obviously there are a lot of layers, a lot of details in that story, but it was the right thing to do, and it was one of those situations where, you know, we were wondering why we hadn't done it sooner. So that was 6.5 years ago now.
Awesome. And Giles, how about for you?
For me, it was a decision a long time ago. So my dad was a business owner and grew up going to his business after school, and always knew I wanted to have my own business in some form from a very, very young age. And then studying product design in England, had one particular lecture from an inventor called Trevor Bayliss, who invented the clockwork radio, which had a massive impact on me. We can go into that story perhaps on another podcast, but essentially it's an invention that helps with communication for when AIDS epidemic was starting off, and he enabled local workers and design, and a fantastic product. But it was to have purpose on design, to have purpose on what you're creating. And then came up with the name Spanner back at university as well. So I had the intent a long time ago, and always wanted to do consulting. So managed to, I was working in the non-smart cell phone industry in Europe, and got the opportunity to come over to the US, and spent 10 years in the Apple ecosystem designing products, and that was all good foundation for going off and spinning out Spanner to create products of impact, and now everybody wants beautiful products. Everyone wants that beautiful fit finish. No one is accepting the 1980s calculator anymore. So Arne and I are pretty passionate about that beautiful user experience and creating product that has impact out in the world, and we feel very fortunate to be on this path together, and haven't looked back, and still very exciting. It's exciting now as it was the first day.
Well, that's so fascinating. I think, folks have really begun to care about design, and I always say that the moment for me where I realized that there was no turning back from form and function, taking a whole new set of eyes, was when the iPhone came out, and then the first iPhone cases came out that looked much more advantageous for women, I guess is probably the best way to put it, where it was an accessory, and this became this thing that I always needed to have. And the case and the holder and the purse that it went in meant so much, because like this new phone thing was part of who I am now. And depending on my personality and my mood, I wanted a different kind of case, I wanted a different kind of purse, I wanted a different kind of holder. And so for me, it's always been fascinating to see that was the light kind of went on, like, I really care about how this stuff is designed. Technology is really cool, but if it's not designed in a way that sort of fits into my life, I don't want to deal with it. And so as you were saying, that this no longer just a random calculator. It's got to be this calculator that looks and feels a certain way, that evokes a certain emotion for me, is why I want it. What's that been like for you? And I think there's definitely been this shift in terms of how people view how products are designed today.
Yeah, I think Giles is spot on that, in general, our standards are higher. What we expect from, consumer products, hardware, hard goods, in how they behave, how long they last, how they perform, and even in the digital world, and an app that just flows well. Sometimes you can't, put your finger on it, literally or figuratively, I guess, but that it just feels clunky, like it's hard to find your way around. Things aren't intuitive or obvious.
Hard to navigate.
Yeah, and I think our just on the whole, our sensitivity to that has been heightened, that we don't have as much patience for that. It used to be, we might tend to think, oh, I'm just not good at technology. I don't understand how this works. That's why it's hard to use. Now, the shoe's on the other foot. We don't have patience for products that don't work well for us, don't fit into our lives, and don't provide us the experiences that we're looking for.
Awesome. And what's one thing that you think that, people don't understand about product design, whether it's a physical product or it's an app that you're building? I think there's been a lot of like, well, anyone can be a product designer. You can just take a course on like Skillshare. Forgetting that like actually there is this art and science and experience that comes with it. What are some of those misconceptions that folks often sort of come to you when it's client work?
Ooh, do you want to take that one first, Giles?
It's fairly common knowledge, I think, of that doesn't happen by accident, but perhaps how much is involved to get to that beautiful product, that beautiful experience. It's so much work and so much experience to bring into the table to make that happen. And the biggest vehicle is through prototyping. I think it's famous of how many prototypes Dyson perhaps made and marketing that out, but it's true. The clients come to us and they have one particular vision of how it's going to be, but we know that it's not going to be exiting and getting onto the market in that same form. There's a massive, rigorous path of prototyping and testing and testing those assumptions, because you may think that this particular feature or technology is important, or how you execute it is important, but you don't know until you really experience it. So for us, we want to prototype as much as we can, as often as we can, and in so many different forms. And as you go through, the fidelity of that prototype get better and better and better. But it's beautiful, the discovery that you have on each prototype and what you learn. That's not from it just being on the computer. That's not from just pontificating in a room with people and thinking how that might go. You need the physical product in your hands, and it's fun just to watch that unfold, and that's how you get great product. And for us, our goal is that you don't see the engineering, you don't see the design work that's gone into that. For us, that's success. The simplicity of a product when it's gone to a user and it just works and it's in the background. That for us is success.
Yeah, it's like it almost becomes almost like this sort of magic where like you don't see all the tinkering behind it. You just see this wonderful, beautiful product or this really easy to navigate app, and then you're off to the races. So I think for all of the really awesome things that you all have done, what would you say has been probably the most challenging project you've had since you've had Spanner, and how did you all make it through?
That's a great question. Just trying to think, the challenges come in so many different forms. Whether it's simply in the beginning, there's a vision for what the experience is we're trying to create, but we don't immediately see what technologies or even what the product itself really wants to be. What are going to be the key features or behaviors that the product will embody that make it a success. So the vision is fantastic. It's compelling. We want to get there with our client. Then we need to just sort of start with that blank slate and think about what the experience is. And, like I said, how does that fit into the user's life? And kind of go from there. There are other programs that are simply challenging because there's a lot to do. We worked start to finish in the development of the Brava oven, which is a fantastic consumer product, user experience, and piece of technology. And that was the case there, is that we could see the vision immediately. The founder, whom we knew from a previous experience, brought this hacked Breville toaster oven that's wired to his laptop into our conference room and cooked us this like Michelin star steak in 4 minutes. It was
Oh my
spectacular.
gosh.
But it's immediately apparent the road from there to shipping consumer product is going to be a long one. And so, there are challenges along the way, and finding the right path, the most effective and efficient way, and being very kind of brutal with the scalpel, if you will. Like if a feature isn't going to help improve or create the user experience, it's out. Is as cool as the technology might be, we have to be very picky about what's in, what's out, so that we don't get bogged down along the way. But certainly technology-wise, engineering-wise, that was an enormous challenge.
Very cool. I want to talk more about this oven in a second. How about you, Giles?
I think, like Arne says, it's every program has its challenges, and we try and instill across the team and with our clients. So it's the experience of navigating through those challenges, and not to be fazed by it. Now we've done so many products, been doing this for so many years. We get excited when there's the tough nut to crack, when there's a big mechanical challenge. But it's to give a non-specific answer, it's every program going through those challenging pieces, whether it is a mechanism, whether it is just having the team be aligned of going through a particular phase, get to the next stage. It's not very sexy, but it's super important, and keeping everybody aligned is critical, and it's always a challenge. But Arne and I work really hard with the team to make sure that that's the case. And so when there are the challenges, we can get through them in a relatively unscathed manner.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about this oven. So the founder of Breville Oven rolls into your office with a hacked toaster oven attached to his laptop. Isn't your first question, are you out of your mind? Or you're like, let's see how this works. Like, what's the story behind that?
We already knew Thomas very well, and we know that he's out of his mind, and he won't mind us saying that. And that's why he wanted to work with us, because we're similar maybe. But it was such an amazing opportunity. He's brilliant, and we saw the beauty of the experience and what that can do. I have my triplets, 8-year-old triplets, cooking me dinner now on the Breville oven, so it was worthwhile. And jumping into something like that is so undefined, but's pushing a new technology into a sector and is first to market. That's really exciting. There's never a run for the hills when that sort of opportunity comes up. It's you jump in both feet and get on the path of partnership together, and that was a true partnership. A lot of fun.
And then when you build something like that with the Breville, and then you actually now see the commercials for it, like what's is this like feeling of relief? Is it just like, oh my gosh, we actually made this crazy thing? Like what's sort of the response when it finally sort of ships and you actually get to see it in market?
It's very satisfying. Not because it's necessarily a shiny new thing, and aren't we clever? It's fundamentally we're in design for a number of reasons, and then we're in consulting because we kind of get our juice from helping other people succeed. Maybe as corny as that sounds, but it's true. So when a product reaches market, I mean, we just want to celebrate with our client that they got there, because it's pretty rare. It's a tough path, and it's a moment to congratulate them and celebrate. But it's very satisfying, filled with satisfaction.
Oh, I imagine. I mean, that's just having those out in the world and saying, "Hey, yeah, no, we did make that happen." So what about those ones that don't actually make it through? Like how I know because also as consultants, you oftentimes have to deliver that bad news. What are some of the experiences you've had where it's like you had to tell a client, brilliant idea, but this isn't going to work?
I think it's very rare we take it to that level. Maybe diplomatically, perhaps we could challenge that. Maybe we do, but our Spanner exists to enable, and part of that is refining a path. And normally it's an adjustment. It's looking at it from perhaps a different angle. It's looking at perhaps a different strategy of how to approach rather than a no. We love to chat to inventors. It's super exciting to do that. We're fortunate to be chatting to huge companies as well, but no inventor should be left behind is is one of our mottos.
Awesome.
And some of those are, what we suggest is you don't go outside yet, you do some user testing yourselves, you make some prototypes, or when you do get to this stage, here are some insights of what that would mean. It's going to be X million, X number of years, and this is what the journey really takes. And that sometimes means that people shy away from that idea they had, and maybe it's not worth taking it to product. But it's normally just a super positive conversation to look at what the options are, and then trying to hopefully to guide someone to make their own decision of where they can take it. But we don't want to be dream killers for sure, but we want to set people up for success.
Awesome. And so very true. It's like, yeah, there's always a yes and instead of a no but. So that's great to hear. So, looking on all the really incredible things you all have been able to do, what do you think you'd tell 25-year-old Arne and Giles?
Like if they wanted to get into this field, or
Yeah, like when you were 25, like thinking you kind of knew everything and could conquer the world, but now looking back on it now, some advice you'd give.
Yeah. Well, we both on occasion talk to young people who are coming out of college or in the first few years of their career in that age group, and it's often about their first job. What should they do? How do they start out and in the best possible way? And my answer, at least, they're usually a little disappointed, because I say it kind of doesn't matter what that job is, as long as you're compelled to go in every morning, and it's interesting, and most importantly, you can learn something from the people that you work with, from the things that you can observe and try. Some place where you can fail. You have the latitude that you're granted, that space as a young person to try and fail. And beyond that, it doesn't much matter exactly what it is that you're doing, because you're not going to be in that job forever. Just get out there and start building your knowledge base, because eventually that turns into wisdom, and it's that wisdom that you can then start to sort of leverage later. Acknowledge that you don't know anything yet, basically, and get out there and start learning.
Great advice. How have you done?
For me, it was a very exciting time. When I was 25, I just arrived in California, and I was working in Apple and living in San Francisco. It was a lot of fun. My answer probably isn't massively inspiring, unfortunately, but the power of your network and the appreciation of that early on in your career. I didn't know how powerful that was around me at that point. And Anna and I are realizing that now, and we've got amazing, deep, rich networks from those experiences that we had. But anyone in that stage, just look around and absorb and be the sponge to those people that are around you and making those connections, and I know I was running very fast at that time, driving product, but wished I'd paused more to absorb more from other people and get the inspiration and have those connections. And now there's hundreds of people that are my friends from those times. So I think just acknowledging that and absorbing that opportunity early on, I think is a really powerful thing later on in life.
Yeah, I think we sometimes forget that, like, the networks that we build when we're younger are the ones that, you know, catapult us to the next neck of the woods that we may fall. And then those grow and grow and grow and grow. And as you get older, the bigger networks that you make, because the more rooms that you're in, are just key. So the earlier you start to build those relationships and, you know, latch on to good folks, no matter what they're doing, but people that you genuinely like and you want to go on the road with, will be the ones that you look back on with, hey, they can connect me to this person and that person and that person and that person. Because that's how this all works. We all know that networks are how careers are now built. And even more now with the technology, it enables us to do it a lot faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an excellent point. And don't be afraid to reach out into your networks. You know, even if it's somebody that you met, if you simply, you know, just met casually and it's been a while, there's nothing wrong with just reaching out and saying, hey, I'd be, you know, love to catch up, hear what it is that you're doing these days. Just keep those connections open. I mean, you really never know. So it kind of goes beyond don't burn any bridges, but you know, keep it active. You know, if somebody pings me and says, you know, hey, would love to catch up with, what are you doing these days? I think what you're up to is fascinating. You know, you get a little ego stroke there, but it never strikes the recipient as odd, I don't think. So it's sort of just, you know, get over the anxiety of reaching out and just stay in touch with people. It nearly always works.
And asking people for advice. I think as 25, it's hard perhaps to look at those people that are inspiring you, that you admire, and whatever field you're in, be bold and ask for advice. I think people are always willing to thank you for asking me, and here's some bits of information. I think I certainly wish I'd done more of that earlier in my career, and now there's amazing mentors and people who are doing amazing things around the world who are our friends, because perhaps we're asking more of those questions now, where we should start earlier.
Awesome. So great. I'm going to ask for some advice now. So if I was a student who just got out of college and wanted to get into product design, what are some things I could do now that I probably couldn't do when you guys were first coming out? Like, are there courses? Do you recommend any kind of programs for folks to sort of begin to get involved in this career path? Or if someone's like mid-career and says, actually, yeah, I've always been fascinated by product design and I come from X career, but it's something that is like kind of calling me in. Like, what are some tips and tools you think can begin to start them on that journey?
Yeah, I think, you know, some of the fundamental strengths, if you can start to develop or enhance, would simply be things like empathy, or your observation skills, how to observe people with an open mind, not to judge or form any assessment, but simply to observe how they go about their daily lives, and, you know, and at the same time find ways to enhance empathy, because those two things go hand in hand. When you can sort of project yourself into someone's life and understand, you know, what they're living, because then you get results like your iPhone case, that like it felt like somebody could peer into your life and say, that's exactly what I needed. Beyond that, you know, if you want to be in product design, you know, the hardware side where there are physical artifacts, eventually those things need to get made. I mean, there's a lot of amazing digital tools, in the design world, which are important, like any tool, but an understanding of how things get made and how materials behave and why things go together the way they do. So all that nuts and bolts kind of stuff, if you can start building your experience there, so that visceral understanding of how things are put together, I think is invaluable.
Awesome, great. How about what about you? What do you recommend?
So yeah, I totally agree with what Anna's saying there, as we normally do. But using some of the basic foundational tools, they're a great access point. So it's unfortunate, I think, that when you see people's resumes and people looking for work, that people get pigeonholed into where their first job was, and that dictates where their whole career goes. And it's hard to perhaps break from that because people are looking for specific experience and relevancy of company or product and those elements. So just having some foundational tools and getting bloody good at them can be a really good access point for getting your foot in the door somewhere. So being an expert in CAD is just a wonderful foundation. It just should be there because you can open doors that way. Be amazing at sketching, be amazing at prototyping, and being able to, like Arne said, work in that digital and physical world, and being bold, being demanding on people where you want to go and get that experience of. We all know the stories of I will sit on the doorstep until you let me work here. But maybe there is just let me be here for 2 weeks and absorb and contribute because I am so passionate about it. That may feel difficult to have that 2 weeks of non-paid or wherever we are in our career, but you're in there for the long haul, and what are you passionate about, and be demanding on what you're passionate for and where you want to go, and never settle. So I think that's a real shame if we do settle for a path that is not what we desire. So be bold and aggressive with folks of what you want to do, and make sure you're ready to step up with the tools and the empathy and all those elements once the opportunity comes your way.
Awesome, and thank you guys for the great advice. So it's interesting because we all now have what we think is more time than ever because we're all stuck at home because of the COVID situation. But we're actually busier than ever, because that's what every study is now showing. So for you guys, what are you all doing for your self-care? Because this is obviously you've got very demanding jobs. You're also leaders of a company. How have you all been able to find some time for yourselves, and what have you been doing with that time?
I'll jump in there. So day to day, it's about finding the routine. I mean, my wife and I have 3 adult daughters, and just for various reasons ended up here when the lockdown launched. So 6 months after we became empty nesters, they were all back. So there was definitely some negotiating going on to try and figure out how all our days could intersect. So I like to start the day, the kind of what I call the quiet hour, with a cup of coffee and figure out what needs to get done. That's just sort of the mentally. Physically, I'm lucky enough to live in a place, in an area where going for an hour-long walk is quite a decent cardio workout. I've discovered through my kids that, and I'm not plugging, but Peloton has a pretty awesome app with a wide variety of things that you can do. They're not just about the stationary bike. So it's easy to pop on one of their workouts for 20, 30 minutes, whatever you want to do. Just in home, no weights, no equipment kind of thing, and I think they're wonderful. And then just getting out in nature, really, whether that's a hike or going down to the beach, or somehow getting out amongst the trees, if you will, and just kind of letting myself de-stress that way.
Awesome. I subscribed to the Peloton thing too because I got the app for free, and I was like, "Oh wait, I can do yoga? Perfect." So
I've become a fan.
same. I'm like, if I had more room in my apartment, I'd actually buy the bike. I live in New York City, so yeah, not yet. How about you, Giles? Because I know that you have younger kids.
Yes, yeah, I've got triplets who are 8, so we need a lot of self-care in this family. If we had video on the podcast, I'm now sitting in my garden, surrounded by all the vegetables, with the dog on my lap and in the sunshine. So while working, so having self-care for us and across the team, we make that front and center as a conversation, and really important. And Zoom burnout is a real thing. We're fortunate to be super busy, but it's back-to-back meetings all day long, and inserting time to actually do self-care is just critical to have that balance. So for me, it's various things, but like Arne, get up before the household, hopefully, and start the day with a meditation, and every day is a run with the dog in the neighborhood, before anything sort of really started. We have our home gym set up. We regularly head to the beach. We're doing a cooking class with the kids, so they're cooking us dinner on a weekly schedule, using the Brava oven, of course.
There you go.
And just spend a lot of time in nature, always in the garden. The kids are in the garden. They're playing in the pool, and bringing our friends around within our bubble that we've created, and just trying to sort of decouple from the there are a lot of things, a lot of moving parts happening, especially in these last few months, and any time that you're a business owner. So that balance is really, really important, and finding whatever those avenues are for you, in my opinion, is just so critical and important, and just be unreasonable not to let that drop. My wife and I have that conversation all the time of, it's about time and close the computer and got in the garden or go for a walk or whatever it is. So it's pretty important. I'm testing a meditation device at the minute as well, so I can also do product testing while while I'm doing healthcare.
Still working, I see.
I can never really let go.
Yeah. Okay. What's growing in your garden?
Many things, but we're overloaded with zucchinis, and our neighbors are fed up of us giving them zucchinis because we have so many. But many different tomatoes and kales, and we've got lots of different types of cucumbers and sunflowers, which are fun for the kids when they're growing a 12-foot sunflower.
Oh my gosh!
Lots of different herbs, and we're doing edible flowers this year, so we're testing out our kids' appetites on eating plants, and we're doing a product which is about growing at the minute. So again, we're doing product design within the growing space of sprouting, so that combines all my passions together. So that's fun.
I was gonna say, like, you're basically one-stop shopping in your backyard.
Part of the design was actually to not go shopping. We were seeding as lockdown happened, so we didn't have to go to the store, and that's actually been pretty successful on most of our fresh produce. So yes, I geeked out on it in an engineering way of how we maximize the produce in the garden. So yeah, it's fun.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome! I want to come visit and try out some of these zucchinis. Because I love making zucchini noodles. Like I'm opposed to having a Brava, I got an air fryer, and it has changed my entire cooking experience, whereby everything is now in the air fryer and super fast and super yummy. So the convenience of it all, it has been key during this experience for me, and being stuck at home. It's like, I really don't want to heat up this entire apartment with the oven. So having something small and compact that can do a lot of different things has been phenomenal. So I totally understand what you guys have done as well. So one last question. What do you guys have as a give and or an ask of the audience? And so this can be anything. So it could be some advice, it could be a wish, it could be a recommendation, anything you want.
For me, I think the appreciation of spending time with people and being there for people, it's been taken away from us. And I think most families are taking this time to take stock of what's important, and just asking around neighbors how are people doing. Everyone's in a different situation, everyone has different pressures, and we find it really rewarding with the people around us and the kids around us as well, of just connecting on that way and taking it from a space of not being so busy. There's already been a number of things removed from commuting or doing all the shopping or the mall. All these things are being taken away from our lives. Yes, super busy in other ways, but I think connecting with folks and just making space for that connection being valuable, not just a passing fleeting moment that you have to do, if that makes sense, of just getting a little bit deeper and appreciating that connection you have with people. I know certainly with our team, it's one of the worst things about this whole situation, not being able to see people physically. So we're looking forward to when we can. But those people that we do see in the bubbles that we've all created, having that be quality time and quality connection, would ask for that to be more, and really for that to be more when this goes away, and if it goes away, that becomes more of the default.
Awesome and wonderful and so very necessary and true. It's like, check in. How are people doing? And because everyone can be smiling on the inside and having a hard time at home. So that's wonderful. That's a wonderful give for the audience. Thank you, John. How about you, Arne?
Yeah, first thought is your last question was a wonderful segue to this one, because we do all need to pay attention to taking care of ourselves, so that we can be there for others, that we can find ways to dissipate our anxieties and our frustrations, so they don't get the better of us, and that then we can be kind to one another and make more space for one another and reach out, recognize other people's situations, and where it's easy for us to lend a helping hand, and even if that's just to say, how are you doing, and then actually listen to the answer. With all the stuff that we get bombarded with, when we spend too much time either watching news, social media, whatever, to take the time, I think, to balance that with recognizing, keeping the perspective that that's just the loudest part of who we are as a larger community, that most of the time most people are kind and generous and giving, and we need to make sure that we remember that and stick with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arne. It's funny. I've been asking that question for over a year. So like, I don't know, 80 episodes. And you're the first person who's noticed that I actually do that on purpose. Because it's like, yourself first, and then how do you help others? Because I think that's the thing that we oftentimes forget in this, is that we have to sort of take care of ourselves first, and then how can we help others? How can we give to others? No matter what the business that we're in, we all have that capacity to give. So thank you guys so much for your wonderful answers. It's been such a delight and an honor, really, to speak with you both. Like I said, what you all do is just so fascinating and geeky and nerdy for me, because I said, someone who used to tinker and build as a kid. I don't know if I mentioned that my dad's an engineer, and so like I learned how to solder when I was like 4. So I've always been fascinated by how to build things that are tactile. And so what you all do excites, and I really enjoy like learning and listening from folks like you all. So thank you so very much for being on the show.
Well, fantastic, Lauren. Thank you for including us. It's humbling for us as well, to be noticed. We do what we do because we love it. So, if we can share that out in the world, all the better. So thank you for the opportunity to join you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Lovely to connect.
Awesome. And so we'll put the information in the show notes so that you can learn more about Spanner and check out these really amazing gentlemen who have built a phenomenal company that's building some of the products that we all know and love. And with that, that is our show.